Okay. Settings. Settings. Show text immediately on. Camera distance 200. Camera speed 150. Double health off. Invincibility off. Save on. Skip dialogue on. Oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Accidentally flipped the controls off. Do not want to do that. And finally, language. Simplified Chinese. As a heads up before we get started in the run, there is a glitch used in a handful of places in the run called pause gliding, where we extend the horizontal distance of our mid-air movement by rapidly pausing and unpausing the game. If you are sensitive to rapidly cycling screens, have any sort of photosensitivity there, consider yourself warned. You may want to look away at those times. I will try to warn you when specifically I am going to do that trick. With that disclaimer out of the way, we will go ahead and get started again in 3, 2, 1, go. Right off the bat, we have a cutscene here. We're going to actually skip the second half of this cutscene by immediately jumping out of the cutscene trigger as soon as we gain control of our character. It looks a little something like this. And from there, we are on into the tutorial. That gives us an idea of the core gameplay loop of this game. We explore the 3D world to find 2D areas. We beat these 2D areas to get collectibles, namely cards and dust. And we use the cards and dust to unlock 3D areas, rinse and repeat. The 2D gameplay is this top-down Zelda-esque gameplay. Your weapon is a vacuum cleaner, which you use to inhale enemies and blocks and shoot them at other enemies and blocks. Fairly straightforward. Coming up here, we're going to do our first glitch of the run. It's called pause float. It looks like that. Basically, if you jump and then immediately pause, you can gain arbitrary amounts of height while paused. We do that all over the run. Most of the time, it's just saving some time on simple platforming things. A few spots it's used for major skips. You'll see a larger one in just a second here, which we're going to use to get over this mountain. 1, 2, 3. You do have to kind of, because you can't see your character while you're doing it, you do have to know the timings for all of them. So you'll hear me count out loud for a lot of them. With that, we are wrapping up the third and final area of the tutorial. Those little red crystals there are dust crystals, or at least minor dust crystals. They are health pickups and also dust, which is a resource you need to unlock certain things in the game. Because of some glitches, we don't care about dust at the moment and actually kind of want to avoid it, although you might still see me pick it up for the health, mainly, at various points. 1, 2. Okay. Ooh. That pretty much wraps up the tutorial. What would normally follow is a tutorial boss, but we are going to skip it. So they try to force you into the tutorial boss by trapping you with invisible walls, but they forget to give you an invisible ceiling. So we're just going to pause float right on out of there. While I'm doing that pause float, I'm going to set up for the next trick, which is called save float. It works the same as a pause float, except you do it with the save dialogue option. Of course, to do it, that means the dialogue option needs to actually stay on the screen, which means I need to turn off the skip dialogue text. So that is what I'm going to do while I'm doing this pause float. 2, 3, 4. Get up here, out of bounds. You have to do that pause float at kind of an angle so that you actually make it into the narrow hole at the top of the area. But it's not too hard. Now I do have to mash through this text because I turned off text skip. And then we do our save float. We just float up into the air, just like this. Here's our pause glide. And we're heading over to this debug platform to hit these cutscene triggers. I find the thing that makes the pause glide easier is I've remapped the pause button to R2 so I can just do it on a trigger. It makes all the pause gliding so much easier. And with that, we are on our way to our first main 2D area. Ooh, I made it up the stairs cleanly. Deceptively difficult to do. This is Mysterio Weisel. All of the 2D sections, well, most of the 2D sections in this game start with one of these rhythm mini games. I'm going to be kind of quiet during them because I have a hard time talking and doing them at the same time. But they're essentially short little auto-scrollers, so that's a good spot to, like, read a donation or two, or just take a break. You know. In any case, this is Mysterio Weisel. So, gimmicks in this area, we have these shooters that we're introduced to. They track you, they shoot at you. It's pretty straightforward. Sometimes we have to bait them into hitting switches, like so. And then we also have innocent baby slimes, which if they're defeated for any reason, they will pop a gate up in your way and you'll have to reset the room. They are extremely fragile and die to anything, including walking into them. So, like here, we have to stop so that that shooter doesn't hit the baby slime. See, walking into them. That was obviously a totally on-purpose demo. At the end of this 2D section, we have a boss skip. When you enter the room with the boss, you haven't fully entered the arena, and the game does not close the doors both in and out of the room until you fully enter the room. If you can hit the boss before fully entering the room, and then enter the room while the boss is in that hit stun animation, you can walk right by the boss and out the open exit. What that looks like in practice is something like this. Hit the boss, walk on by. We're supposed to fight that boss like 5 times. We've already skipped it twice. We're probably going to fight it twice and then skip it one more time. That is Mysterio Weisel. So I want to. There is a marathon mid-spring speed fling. 2, 3. Submissions are due this Friday. So that is why I'm streaming this right now, to practice my commentary, to try and get a commentated run that I feel comfortable submitting for marathon purposes. So that's what we're trying to do here. Thank you, thank you. Appreciate the good luck. If I get in, it's going to be, I believe, first weekend of April is the event itself. I'll be submitting it as an online run, which, if I recall reading their guidelines correctly, means it's probably going to be an overnight run, which is fine by me. I'll just take some time off around it so I don't, like, end up being exhausted at work. What have you. No. That first cycle there is very tight and hard to get. But the backup doesn't take too much time. This is Brand Malignant. The theme here, if you couldn't tell, is fire. Everything is on fire, including you. As evidenced here. Ow, 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 ow. Yeah, it's just faster to face tank that fire than it is to actually walk up to the water slime. And this is the boss. Theoretically, it is possible to skip, but it is sub-pixel perfect, not very likely to... Oh, never mind, I just got it. Cool. So, yeah, that is a boss that's totally possible and always reasonable to skip. Neat. Love it when that happens. When I prove myself wrong in the middle of talking about how difficult that skip is. It's still extremely difficult, by the way. Or rather, it's... I'm not even sure it's difficult is the right word. It's kind of RNG. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I have tested it. It is sub-pixel perfect. I've been lined up on the exact same pixel before and not had it work. Like, lined up on the same pixel, works one time, doesn't work another time. Okay, we made it past that cutscene stack. So there, I just turned in my dust and upgraded the prism in the center at the same time. Basically, we need to do 2 manual updates, and we've now done both of them. Or, upgrades to the prism. We're gonna turn tech skip back off, or on. Yeah, it's ridiculous. That said, there's no consistent setup for it, but it is basically free to go for. Because if you fail, you just end up in the boss, and you just fight the boss normally. And realistically, it only saves like a few seconds over an optimal boss fight. So it's not that big of a deal if you miss it. I certainly wouldn't call it a reset point or anything. Anyways, this is Gustine Papellum. The theme here is tongues. What do I mean by that? Well, tongues. Like that. Come on. At least the tongues inside Gustine are a lot more cartoony than Gustine themselves. Yeah, we basically have these levers that we have to pull, and they essentially start short little timers. Here we lick a taste bud, because sure, that's a thing you can do in this video game. Alright. Taking a long way around those because it's slightly safer. Coming up is a room where I have to do some kind of precise movement to get a quick kill. Let's see if I can get it. It's in the next room. So, got it. That is consistent if you know what you're doing and position yourself right. And it does save a fair amount of time. But you get one shot at it. Oh, right. So the way that boss works is it takes progressively more hits every time you fight it. And the thing that threw me off there is like, wait, isn't there another hit? But because we skipped the one in Brand Malignant, this one took one fewer hit. So it saves a little bit more time. Which is probably why I have a gold there. Yeah, I did find a consistent setup for that. The thing is, you only get one chance because the enemy doesn't reset position if you reset the room. So if you fail it the first time, just do the room normally. But yeah, you basically come in at the top. Hang on, it's hard to explain while I'm doing this. That, by the way, was a ride scale clip. That's the other main glitch we use in a couple of spots. Actually, I think now we basically only get in and out of this area. Not used for anything else. And we are on to Great Guam. Guam, 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 Guam. I don't see what's so great about this Guam anyways. The theme here is dirt and worms. It doesn't have a really strong gameplay gimmick, but it looks neat and I like the music here. We have one branch that has these underground mini Guam enemies that you're going to see in a minute here. Where you have to walk over them to get them to pop themselves up and be vulnerable. And then we have, in the top half, we have some dark rooms that are basically copies of the light rooms you enter them from, except these red ropes are missing, so you can actually get through. So you essentially just memorize the layout of the room before you go down the ladder. So you can go back up the ladder. Nice and easy. Sometimes there's also some enemies. And that's that side. These electric slimes are, for some reason, the only electric slimes in the game that you cannot pick up with your vacuum. I do not know why. It still bothers me to this day. And then coming up here, we have another boss skip. This one is pretty easy to do. You just have to trigger that mini Guam enemy so you can pick it up with your vacuum and shoot it at the boss. And that's the end of Great Guam. Yeah. Yeah, you do have to murder the mini Guam family. It's very sad. We're going to do one more ride scale clip to get out of this area. This one's a bit harder because the corner that you're jamming yourself into is a lot shallower. And then we're going to do a pause glide to get over to the elevator and go up the elevator. Then we're going to turn in dust in the intended way. And then coming up in just a little bit, we have probably the most important pause glide in the game, which we're going to use to actually skip one of those rhythm mini games. But first, cutscene. Very short one. Blink and you'll miss it. There, it's over. The other thing is, now that we're in the Blue Veil section of the game, that's the name of this area. Come on. There are now cards hidden in chests everywhere, like that one. 2, 3. We're gonna get on top of the car wash. And that skips a rhythm mini game because we're supposed to enter this 2D section from down in the bottom of this pit. But because we can just float up to this upper section, which is supposed to be an alternate entrance that we use later, we skip the main entrance, and the main entrance is what has the rhythm mini game associated with it. So we are going to make 2 passes through this area. One of them is this kind of dead and dying version of this area where there's a whole bunch of gravestones that we need to clean the dust off of and read. And then we'll come back to a living version of it. Since we're making 2 passes, I've picked up a key here. We're going to use that key further down the tower on the second pass. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good night. Thank you for stopping by. Yeah, we pop out here. One, 2, 3, 4. And that's the same building we entered just a moment ago. And now here's the living version. Here we have to talk to the people that used to be gravestones. We can ignore all the other people. Of course, like I said, we're going to make a detour to spend this key because there's now side paths that have cards in them. And we do still need every card we can get our hands on at this point. So we're going to do just that. There, I team up with the shooter to kill that plant enemy much faster. We've got our card. Now we just backtrack. Make sure to talk to children. And now we basically just walk to the end of this area with some text along the way. And that is the end of Jeff Agricite. Not bad, not bad. Alright. Now, I just timed this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's slightly faster than walking or jumping out of the pit normally. But yeah, that pit that we just spawned in is where we're supposed to enter that previous 2D section. Instead, we skip it entirely. We are going to do some pause floating and pause gliding to get a card that's behind a waterfall here, because there's always something behind the waterfall. 2, 3, 4. One, 2, 3. And we have to just drop in here. This is where Iwasaki Antimon lives, and that is our next target. Pause gliding works when you are in human form as well. Although you mostly see me do it in car, just because I always want to be in car form when I am allowed to be, because it's faster. That said, here you're not allowed to be. It's also not good for jumping, obviously. But basically, anytime I'm not a car, assume I'm not allowed to be. The rhythm minigame has introduced black crystals, which you have to neutral the D-pad to avoid. Just a minor twist on the rhythm minigame that you are used to at this point. And here is Iwasaki's Antimon's area. It is snow and ice themed. If you're new to this game and running this game, it's very easy to get lost here. I certainly did when I was first learning it. But after a while, you learn where it is you need to go, which is here for this key. I'm a little low on health. Fine. That looks scary, but if you enter the screen at the right height, you can just walk right through it. I probably should have grabbed that health. It's fine. The snowmen are some of the scariest enemies, mainly because they do 2 points of damage if they hit you. I'm going to take a safety save here, mainly to get my health back. This is one of the few spots in the game where your health actually kind of matters if you're not careful. Because you get a free heal every time you hit a save, it largely is irrelevant. But there's a few spots where your health can get a little dicey, and this tends to be one of them. Mainly because of these two rooms, this one and the next one. All that detour was for that card. And now we should be home free in terms of health. We do make a brief pit stop outside, where we are going to shoot this mailbox to get back into 2D. If you were playing casually, you'd pick up some lore there about what exactly is going on with Iwasaki. But this is a speed run. We don't care about lore. I mean, I care about lore. This game's very good. You should play it. But for the speed run, we don't care about lore. Okay. Now we have to walk back out of Iwasaki's sub-area. Make sure to neutral the D-stick as the control stick as the camera changes there, because otherwise your controls will be a little weird. Just drive right on over this route. And this ledge over here, 1, 2, has another card for us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we're just gonna glide right on over this mountain to our next 2D area, which is Clonway Jonstein here. This is, in my opinion, the hardest 2D section to speedrun of this group. This group being Blue Veil. So, Jeff, Iwasaki, and Clonway. Yeah, it's the hardest one of this section. It requires the most precise movement. The gimmick here is you have a shadow clone. It mirrors your movements. It can, if it walks into the red shadow goop on the floor, it will die. It's the only thing that can interact with shadow buttons. It can touch spike enemies to turn them into shadow spikes that will chase you down. Those can also activate shadow buttons. So there's the shadow buttons. There's the red goop. Here's some spikes. There's a shadow spike. And see, the shadow spike can get over through that wall and actually get to this button. Similar idea here. Of course, if the shadow spike hits the red goop, it's also going to die. So we have to bait it to avoid the red goop. Like that. And then coming up in the next room, it's actually going to get in our way. So we have to specifically go out of our way to touch the red goop. Just like that. And this area is separated into chambers, test chambers. Got kind of a Portal-esque feel to it in that regard, at least in the writing. That was test chamber 1. We are now in test chamber 2. Oh yeah, it's also got these teleporters that are very sensitive. Like so. That's another room where the shadow clone would have gotten in our way if we just tried to go for the exit. I should take a safety save, the next save point, because I am low on health. And I do tank a little damage in the next room, in the next area. So we'll just touch that save point, barely out of our way. Oh, I got knocked back into the teleporter. Yeah, see what I mean about tanking some damage? Here we have to be careful to not accidentally make these spikes into shadow spikes, because shadow spikes are unkillable. Nope. There we go. And we're pretty much done with this area. We've got one more spot where the shadow clone is going to try and block us. Open that gate so that we can actually walk into the spot where the clone hits the goop. And we're done. And there we go. That is Clonway. Alright, and with that, we have picked up all the cards we need to trigger the passage into the mid and the late game. We're basically at the halfway point, so we're just going to run over here and we're going to trigger a cutscene. 1, 2. That gate is openable if you shoot the glowing yellow spot a bunch of times, but it's faster to just pause float over the gate. And so here's the cutscene that kind of informs the second half of this game. You see one of our beloved parental units implode? Anyways, we're traumatized. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what that means is we walk slower for a little bit, and then a timer starts. And if we're still on that screen when the timer ends, we drop out of car form and fall over and have a slow animation again, and then are slowed down for another 8 steps. But if we screen transition before that timer ends, we can avoid that altogether. That screen is particularly tight. Pause spam to get over that railing. And we made it to this cutscene without dropping out of car form until we are forced to in order to watch this cutscene. When we're done with this cutscene, we're going to fall over again. We're going to be slow for 8 more steps. You also can't turn into a car for those 8 steps. And then we're going to turn into a car after those 8 steps, and we're heading for that tower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I like to count out the steps so that I can turn into a car as soon as I can. Now we're going to fall over again. We're going to walk over to the sigil and touch it. That inverts the tower, and now we're going to fall up the tower. I'm going to avoid touching the ground because that starts that timer I mentioned counting. And we don't want to activate it. And then here I'm going to do a somewhat precise jump to get through that screen transition without falling over like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I didn't quite make it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. That's a little unfortunate, but not too bad. We can just do it again. And we wanted to enter that fruit, but then the dog ate the fruit, and now we have to enter the dog. Dog is going to play hard to get, but it always jumps to the same spots in the same order at the same time. Unfortunately, because I screwed up the getting here, my timer is wrong, so I fell down there instead of getting in. So I lost a good amount of time there, which is unfortunate, but hey, it's fine. That's speedruns for you sometimes. In any case, welcome to Dustbound Village. Let's talk about spawn displacement. In certain cutscenes in 2D, if you hold buttons on the directional pad, you will spawn a distance away from where you're supposed to spawn, which can let you get a head start on your movement for after the cutscene. So right now I'm holding down and right. I'm supposed to spawn up next to the bed here, but instead I spawn further into the room and just get a head start on my movement. We're going to do that a couple of times. I'm not necessarily going to call it out every time because it's relatively minor, but it's something to talk about while that cutscene's playing. In any case, right now, so this is Dustbound Village. We are kind of starting a new routine here. So what that means is there's going to be a lot of repetition in this part of the run, basically until we leave Dustbound Village, which, as you can see by the splits, we're going to be here for like 10 minutes. This is a pretty lengthy portion of the run. There's a lot of cutscenes, a lot of talking. This is where both having skip dialogue on and language set to simplified Chinese saves a lot of time. So here we're just getting introduced to the area. We're going to take the train here over to the shrine. This is the fruit we were trying to enter previously. I'm going to hold down and right again. For this cutscene. And then there's 3 primary segments that we're going to do in Dustbound Village. There's gardening, there's ritual, and there's wrestling. We're going to start with gardening. Gardening is basically the 2D action sections you're used to at this point. You know, walk through, kill the enemies, so on and so forth. Here we have to wait for the shooter to actually do our dirty work for us. And that's gardening 1. Like I said, we're starting a new routine, so we're going to repeat each of these sections a couple of times. We're going to do gardening twice, we're going to do wrestling and ritual 3 times each. We are on our way to ritual 1. We're just going to take the train again. This is absolutely positively a normal train. I don't know what you're talking about. So for the ritual, we roll the dice, we cross the rickety bridge, and we send a sacrifice down the slide. Just like that. Here we're sacrificing a bowl of clam chowder. It makes sense in context. And here's wrestling 1. So wrestling, we have to do these kind of fake hits. Where you're gonna see me aiming kind of next to our target here. because I find that easier to actually hit those fake hits that way. Oh. Now we have quick time event. I just realized I should have gone here. And we do a little back and forth there. And that's Wrestling 1. Now we're going to do Gardening 2. We'll see the return of the mini-Guam enemies in this room. There's a ton of them. They're in a box. We need to destroy all of them, because they're ruining our gardens. Hence, gardening. We're okay to tank a little damage there, because there's a free save point that we're going to hit on the way to Ritual 2. And also, Gardening 2 there is the last spot where our health actually matters. There is no Gardening 3. We are now done with gardening. We're going to do Ritual 2. We're going to do Wrestling 2. We're going to do Ritual 3, and we're going to do Wrestling 3. So, roll the dice. Cross the rickety bridge. I said cross the rickety bridge without falling off. And sacrifice a flower that our crush gave us. Come on. There we go. B. Down. Right. Up. Right. Left. Right. Left. Y. The last one is always Y, so I can tell when that's coming up by watching the meter on the side. Oh, no. Don't run away, please. Alright, that was Wrestling 2. We've got some cutscenes here, and then we're going to move on to Ritual 3. Had to think there for a moment. Yeah, still got a little ways to go in Dustbound Village. Ritual 3 is going to be pretty much the same as you've seen the other times. Wrestling 3, it's going to have the back and forth section that you've seen a couple of times now. The quick time event section that you've seen. And then something I call the DDD section, which will make sense if you've ever played a Kirby game before. Or at least a Kirby game that features King DDD as a boss. And then it's got some energy tennis that's going to be really easy. B. Up. Up. Down. Up. Up. Down. Right. Y. It's possible to do this in 2 jumps if you're really quick on the draw. I was not there, but fine. That was Energy Tennis. It went by really quickly because you can just stand next to him and mash. And now we have the longest cutscene in the game. So I'm going to get up, stretch, get a drink of water. Just like, this is a good spot for a break in the run. Stretch. Stretch. Good stretch. Okay. Apparently still a bit behind, but that's okay. I split in the middle of this cutscene, listening for a specific audio cue to know when to split. Right there. And that was Dustbound Village. And now we are essentially in the end game. We've got some more cutscene here, but for the end game, what we need is A, we need 150 dust. B, we need 3 collar pieces. And C, we need the base of the collar. So dealing with those in order, 150 dust. Our tank only holds 90 at a time. So what we're going to do right away is go back to Clonway, because it's the most convenient place to do this, and grind out 60 dust. Then we'll go turn that in, and that way later, once we have a full tank, 60 plus 90 is 150, and that's all the dust we need. So that's what we're on our way to go do right now. After that, we're going to go get our collar pieces. And for the most part, that means entering these areas, and the collar pieces are actually in like side chests, so we don't have to do the entire area, which is nice. So it'll be a little bit shorter. Got a pause glide coming up to get over this fence again. Just drive up this wall. One, two. Oop, I wasn't quite high enough. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Stand on your nose to enter you. Phrasing? Sure. Anyways, this is the room where we're going to do our dust grind. Shouldn't take us too long. This is unfortunately one of the few spots of RNG in the run, because whether or not an enemy drops the dust crystal is RNG based, which means how many screen transitions this takes you is also slightly RNG based. Alright, there's your 61. That wasn't too bad. Again, it's faster to do that than to actually try to open the gate legitimately. Here we'll get some dust. Alright, and now we are on to one of the strangest parts of the game. is sometimes referred to as meeting the dolphin. In the splits there, you can see it's called Desert NPC. Other names it has are No Such Scene, or My Boring Life. It is all of those. It is none of those. It's very strange, and you're just gonna have to watch. And yes, that is supposed to sound ominous. Anyways, we've got a rhythm minigame here. Alright, I need absolute concentration for this one. Yeah, just kidding. This is free. It is supposed to look this glitchy and weird. It's one of those things where I would say it makes sense in context, and I would be lying. It does not. Anyways, the main thing we're here for is this is one of our collar pieces. That jingle means we just found a collar piece. There are 5 locations the collar pieces can be in. Whichever 3 you visit first is where they're going to be. So we pick the 3 that are fastest. 2 of them, we're able to enter their 2D areas, pick up the collar piece, and then immediately bail. The other 3 all require beating their 2D sections. Of those, this is the shortest. And this is the game we're playing now. We just completely changed which game we're playing. This is Nora. Welcome to Her Boring Life. It's the name of the track in the soundtrack. Anyways, there's a specific path I'm taking here out of the apartment building. You can take kind of random paths and get out only a little bit slower, but if you take that path, it's the shortest you're able to get. Anyways, we check social media and we go to bed, as folks do. We're going to look out the window again. And now there's a gargoyle in front of our apartment. And then, well, we're going to check social media and go to bed again. And what would normally follow is, honestly, it's a horror section. It's super intense, and it's unlike anything else that's in this game. And as a result, the developers were kind enough to give you an out where you can just climb out the fire escape instead of experiencing that. Of course, it's also a lot faster for the speedrun, so we're going to do that too. We just have to sit through a little bit more cutscene here. And there we go. And that's one of those things that it certainly happened. It happened to all of us. You can't say it didn't happen, other than there's now no evidence that that NPC ever existed, so maybe it didn't. Who knows? It's weird, it's complicated, it doesn't make sense in context either. And I kind of love it, honestly. In the meantime, we are on our way to Orb. There's an orb at the top of this mountain. We need to enter said orb because there's a collar piece inside. So we have to pop the face in the orb. And then we can enter the orb. one of the few 2D sections where there's naturally not a rhythm mini game in front of it. It's not like we did anything fancy to skip it. There's just not one here. So yeah. Normally, we'd be talking to the people in this apartment complex to get fashion orders, where we'd play this fashion minigame, where we make their outfits for them. But we just need to get permissions to get onto the 3rd floor, and then walk all the way to the end of it. And then we can just leave. Just like that. Out of there at 1 hour even. Not bad. So, you might have noticed me talking to these tree NPCs. There are 5 of them. You have to talk to them in a specific order. And I've been doing that on our way around this area. That was number 4. Number 5 is over here, and that's the one we have to actually enter to get our last collar piece. Here is our last rhythm minigame of the run. Now there are, of course, portions of the endgame here that we are skipping. That's because this is any % good ending and not all cards good ending. 1 second. I do occasionally run all cards as well, although I haven't practiced the latter half of the run in a bit. I should get back to that at some point. I should do some more all cards runs. Those are fun. I like some of the late game areas, and it's kind of a shame that the any % run just skips them, because there's no reason to go into them if you're just doing any %. Anyways, we are now in New Zealand. We have gained the ability to spark while we're in our shrunken form, and therefore enter even smaller things, which is what that low resolution area was. You're only going to see that very few times. Basically right there, and then a couple of times in the final dungeon and final boss. So here we are just making a beeline for this raft so we can sail on over to our last collar piece, right down here. And then we're going to make a detour. Remember how I said we needed 90 dust in our tank? We need a full tank here, and up here is the place to get it. Right here. Usually 2 passes at this room will get you the dust you need. Although, ooh, that's a bit unlucky. Like I said, dust is one of the few RNG things in this game. I went ahead and grabbed all the way up to 90 because I couldn't remember if I actually got 61 earlier. So that's a little unlucky on that dust grind, but fine. You can see it definitely cost us some time there, having to dip back into that room. And with that, all we have left is to get the collar base and then go use the collar. So we've got a pause glide here to get the collar base. That was the color base. And now, well, what does one do with a collar other than put it on a dog? So we are going back up to the top of the tower to put it on the dog that ate our fruit earlier and that contained Dustbound Village. And we are going back to Dustbound Village. And things are going to be a little bit different. But that is what's going to give us the impetus for unlocking and achieving the good ending. So that is what we are going to do. These floating jellyfish things, by the way, just bounce you back up if you hit them, which is why I'm avoiding them, because we don't want to go up. We want to go down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we pet the dog. We pet the dog a second time. We put the collar on the dog, and we enter the dog. Where it is too dark to read. Good thing we're not reading anyways, because we're skipping all the text. There's nothing to read. Anyways, we need this. We need that item, and we need to talk to these two to get the idea to actually maybe rebel against our creators and get to the end of the game. Neat. And with that, we are now ready to trigger the end game. Which, step 1 is get back to the center, which means falling down this tower. If you fall down on the outside, you just respawn back at the top, so you have to actually go inside the tower, fall down it, which means dodging all this stuff again. We can get through this door before we even fully hit the ground. Assuming you don't get caught up on the wall there, like I did a little bit, but it's fine. Drive over here. We're heading back to the center, where we're going to turn in our dust and then proceed to the last 2D area of the game, Nano Cleaner's Era. It is the longest and the most difficult 2D area of the game, so this is definitely a speed run where it ain't over until it's over, you know? You can and will lose runs to Nano Cleaner's Era. You can and will lose runs to the final boss. Like, do not take this lightly. That's basically a bunch of dialogue boxes asking you, are you sure you want to do this? And the answer is yes, of course. This is a good ending speedrun and not a bad ending speedrun. The main difference, well, okay. Any percent good ending and any percent bad ending are vastly different. Any percent, or all cards good ending and all cards bad ending, really the only difference is you replace this final dungeon with a dust grind, which is why I don't run that category, because it's kind of boring. Or at least you take the most intense part of it and you replace it with a grind, which, not for me. Anyways, here's Nano Cleaner's Era. So, gimmicks in this area. We've got pink cilia spikes that you shoot to make them retract, and they hurt you and enemies. So, we're going to drag some enemies into them, like that. We've got bubbles, which protect enemies, but you can break them by shooting them. And we've got these boomerang enemies, which they work like boomerangs, as you would expect. The first 3 rooms there neatly explain all the gimmicks, and then we use them in a bunch of different ways, basically. Bubbled enemies can hit switches if you push them around by hitting them with things, like we're doing here. Ooh, that's... I'm gonna just reset this room. That was not... I meant to shoot that to the left. Like that. Here we're using this boomerang, this bubbled boomerang to kill all 4 spiky enemies. We can get this key. We need 3 keys so we can access the 3 elements of balanced breakfast and destroy them. Come. I thought I was going to sneeze for a minute there. Just stopped talking, and then I didn't sneeze. Anyways, here we have to prevent the pink cilia spikes from destroying that shooter, so the shooter can destroy the spiky enemies. Alright, we've got 2 keys. We're going to go spend these 2 keys before we get the 3rd key. Here we've got another bubbled boomerang. We gotta navigate into all the enemies. It follows you, so your movement will affect where it goes. There you have to kill all the enemies, including the boomerang enemy, which means breaking the bubble after it defeats the 2 enemies. And here's our first element of a balanced breakfast. They move around in square patterns, but if you hit them with the vacuum once, they will stop moving, at which point you can dump 10 shots into them as quickly as possible, which is precisely what we did. Now we just gotta backtrack a little, back to the last fork we dealt with. Here we've got a new gimmick, blood gates, which are these red gates that you have to take damage to open. Of course, this section of the game makes it difficult to do that, but that's okay. Those teleporters are really sensitive, man. Now, you might be thinking, hey, you're on low health. You should be careful. It's true I'm on low health, but I'm in no risk of taking damage until the next save point. And save points are full heals, so I am not worried. That said, there are a couple of spots in this dungeon where you do have to worry a little bit about your health, because optimal strats involve tanking damage. But it's usually not too big of a deal. Anyways, here's our last key. Now we gotta go all the way back to the beginning so we can spend this key. Most of the stuff in this dungeon is on the left side. The keys are all interchangeable, so it doesn't matter which key you spend in which lock. There we have to manipulate a boomerang through the teleporters. That is the one innocent slime in the game that we are allowed to kill. Right, here, I'm going to actually intentionally take damage off of this bubble boomerang to control its trajectory a little bit better, so that it doesn't hit the innocent slimes there. And here's our last element of a balanced breakfast. We are just about done with the run. We just have to go to the final boss and defeat the final boss. So, I think we are on a good track here. I think this has gone fairly well. Alright, here's our final boss. We are trying for a 6 cycle here, so he's going to extend his arm, we're going to shoot its weak point, and we're trying to... Basically, each phase, we're trying for 2 cycles. So, this is phase 1. That was 2 cycles. Perfect. Now we have an interior part of phase 1. And here we have to hit the spikes coming out of the side, up at the boss. They always come out at the same places in the same order at the same time. So it's pretty easy to always get the 6th hit as early as possible. And we're on to phase 2. Now there's a turret shooting at us from the corner. The other thing is the arm stays extended for less and less amount of time. Alright, good. We still got a 2 cycle there, although we took some damage. I'm going to grab a little bit of health. I'll go up, since it's on my way to get the health anyways. I missed a shot. That's unfortunate. But it doesn't cost me that much time to miss one shot there. Right. And now, phase 3. Not quite. Phase 3, 2 cycles is really hard. So 7 cycles is reasonable. Alright. And we're basically at the end here. Just one more of these. No, I missed a shot. Alright. Still, not too bad. Horrible screeching noise up incoming shortly. And then time is when the last text fades after the fade to white goes to a fade to black. So time. Okay. That's pretty good. I like that. I mean, obviously it's no PB, or even a 2022 PB, since that's what we're comparing against right now, actually, is the best time I've had this calendar year, since I put the game down for a while last year. But I beat my average segments. And honestly, 1:17:18, that's a pretty good time for this game. I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah. We're gonna sit through the closing cutscene and end credits here. I want to do post-run verification, just double check the settings, and I like to go back into the save file and make sure I have all the cards I expect to have. It doesn't matter for this category, but it does matter if you're doing all cards. It makes it easier for the speedrun.com moderators to actually confirm that you have all the cards. So we're going to go through the credits here. I am going to fast forward through the parts of the credits I'm allowed to fast forward through. And then we'll load back in. And that should do it. Just waiting for that the end to pop up. Yeah, the other thing is that personal best in 2022 was without a camera or a microphone on, no commentary. So I think doing that with commentary and only being like 30 seconds slower, that's pretty good. I feel like I'm pretty happy with that run. Honestly, I might just submit this and still practice on Thursday, but I might submit this now to not have to worry about it for the rest of the week. That's probably a good idea. Let's just get it submitted. Yeah, okay. So, since I think I'm submitting this, if you're watching this as part of the submission selection committee, hi, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to consider this. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the run. Feel free to reach out. I do see that I am dropping some frames. What? Hold on, what? Why did I start dropping frames all of a sudden? Well, unfortunately, this is going to be in the submission video, but... Anyway, like I said, let's do post-run verification. I'm going to load back into the into the file. We're going to look at my settings. Settings are all good. We're going to look at cards. Alright, I think my internet's done hicking up. That's not a word that I just said. It's done mucking with itself. I don't know what happened there, but anyways, that's gonna do it for this run. Thank you for joining me.